Let's talk about Israel's fourth election in just 2 years. The government has collapsed again. The two coalition parties led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz had been fighting for months.
A fourth election in less than 2 years isn't what the economy needs, isn't what the country needs, isn't what the people need.
So why so many trips to the polls? Why do some people blame Netanyahu? And who's expected to win this time around? Here are 5 things you need to know ahead of Israel's general election. The first thing you need to know is that in Israel, instead of voting for a politician, people vote for the party they want in parliament. The Knesset has 120 seats, so they have to win at least 61 to get a majority. But no single party has ever pulled that off, so every government has been a coalition.
People talk about who wins election in Israel, and my answer, no one wins election in Israel. As a collective, the Israeli voters don't trust anyone in particular.
So here's the second thing. Many of the parties just can't stand each other, so it makes building those coalitions hard. Since April 2019, Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party and the Blue and White party led by Benny Gantz have tried and repeatedly failed to share power. The last government lasted 7 months. From the start, Gantz and his party had to swallow terms they didn't like. And Likud had also promised a 2-year budget but didn't deliver. That's when it all fell apart.
A fractious coalition government beset by infighting.
Israel is heading for a fourth election in just 2 years.
Which brings us to the third thing you need to know. This election has a lot to do with Benjamin Netanyahu. They usually do.
I think in a way, after 12 years in power, he can't separate between the state and himself.
Netanyahu is counting on a few things to win. Israel's vaccinating people against COVID-19 faster than most places. He's seen as tough on Iran and on the Palestinian issue, which plays well with many voters. People also seem to approve of Israel's new relationships with Gulf countries, like the UAE and Bahrain, what they call normalization.
It's like, it's better to be in a marriage that's not so happy rather than go out and find someone new and get the unexpected.
But Netanyahu has his fair share of critics. People have been protesting against him for months. Some are upset about how much the lockdowns hurt the economy. Unemployment is at 15%. Others want him held accountable for corruption. Netanyahu has been indicted for fraud, breach of trust, and bribery in 3 cases. He's accused of things like accepting nearly $300,000 worth of gifts from businessmen looking for favors. It included cigars and champagne, of offering a deal to a newspaper owner for positive coverage, and what the prosecution calls media bribery, basically getting flattering coverage on a news site in return for hundreds of millions of dollars worth of favorable regulation. Netanyahu's pleaded not guilty to all of that, but his critics are saying that as long as he's in office, he has political influence, and that's why he keeps dragging Israelis back to the polls.
Netanyahu and his supporters and his legal team are all doing everything in their capacity to delay and postpone and play the political system until he believes he will have a coalition in which they change the legislation, in which a prime minister won't face a trial.
And Netanyahu has proven he's a survivor. Likud may not have won elections outright, but they've been beating their rivals. So here's our last thing to know. Who's the competition, and do they have a chance this time? There's the centrist Yair Lapid, who leads the Yesh Atid party. He's telling people to vote for anyone but Netanyahu. Then there are 2 challengers from the right. Gideon Sa'ar, who left Likud to start the New Hope party. He's pitching himself as Netanyahu's main rival. And Naftali Bennett from the Yamina party. He's positioned himself as neither pro nor anti-Netanyahu.
There is no an alternative which is an obvious one. Netanyahu becomes a fallback option.
Most polls suggest his party Likud will come out on top again. But people in Israel are staring at another weak coalition. If you look at this poll, for instance, and add up the predicted number of seats for the main right-wing parties, they fall well short of that 61-seat majority. It's the same for the centrists. The leftists are even worse off. Then there's all these other parties expected to win a handful of seats, including Benny Gantz's Blue and White Party. They're polling so low, some wonder if they'll cross the threshold to even get into parliament. Some analysts say that's partly because Gantz had promised never to share power with Netanyahu, but then did.
I really think that the coming election is more about the logistics of the election than about ideology.
Still, some Israelis will vote for parties that represent their views. Then it comes down to who can get past their differences and make a deal to form a coalition government. And that could take months. AlJazeera.com will have all the election coverage on the day, and they'll be following the negotiations closely afterwards. See you next week.